Hi guys. So I am looking rough, but it is what it is. Happy almost 4th of July. I wanted to come on here and talk about something that I had a big aha moment with while I was traveling in Italy and Greece with my youngest daughter, and that is intuition. Intuition is something we talk a lot about, like follow your intuition, listen to your gut, listen to the nudge. The nudge is your intuition and all of these things. And it's like, okay, well, those are great words, but what does that look like in reality? Like, what does that look like? And if you would have asked me before this trip, I probably would have had some pat answer like, it's that inner knowing that you get, and you don't know how you know, but you know. And that's a pretty honest way of describing intuition, but it isn't very practical. What does that look like in reality? And so while we were on this trip, there were multiple moments where I would have an intuitive nudge, and I either listened or I didn't listen. And in real time, there was a result from that. And one of those situations, the most profound situation where that happened was I had an intuitive nudge early on that on our last day in Italy, we had to check out of our Airbnb at 10 and we had to be at the airport not until like 7 was our flight to go to Greece in the evening. So we had all of this time during the day. And initially, I had booked a driver. I had booked a company that a friend had used, so I knew they were reputable, they were going to drive us anywhere we wanted to go all day, and we would have had our luggage safely in the back of their car, and they were never going to leave their car. So even if like we said, well, drive us to X, Y, and Z, we would have gotten out, but the driver would have stayed with the car. Instead, what I ended up doing is I canceled the driver and I was like, we could rent a car, and they drive on the same side of the street. Then we have flexibility because we were there a week, and then we have flexibility. We can go to other places if we want, all of the things. So, and I thought, and on that Saturday, then we can just do that. We can just, load our stuff into the car, go wherever we want. It'll be fine. So I did, and I didn't listen to my first intuitive nudge to stay with that company. I went ahead and booked my own car. Never used the car the whole week until the last day. We drove from the airport to our Airbnb, and I actually didn't even really save money on it. So, it wasn't even a saving money kind of a situation. So I'm not sure why I did it. And the last day, we load up the car, we go to the beach, we decide, let's go to the beach. It's 15 minutes from the airport. We'll spend the morning at the beach, we'll have a nice lunch, then we'll go head to the airport in the afternoon. So all was well, we did that, and we went to the beach, and I decided, I don't really want to I had, my main credit card, and then I had backup cards, and I was like, in case something went wrong. It's like, I don't really want to take that to the beach. What if, somebody comes along and just grabs our bag and goes? So I did take our passports, but I left all of my backup credit cards. I left my driver's license. I left some pretty critical things in the car when we went to the beach. And we were parked in like an area you never would have thought anything would have gone on. I mean, there was so much traffic, so much foot traffic, very visible, highly visible area. Definitely not like a side street or something. Main area, a block away from the police department, literally. And so we go to the beach, all is well. We come back to the car, everything is fine. And I'll tell you about another intuitive nudge. And then we like change. I just threw on a different dress. But in getting into the stuff in our car, I was like, I'm going to move some things around before we go to the airport. So I took my computer out of my carry-on bag and put it in my luggage. My luggage I'm going to check, which was already overweight you're not supposed to put a computer in checked luggage. I moved over some jewelry from, like, not expensive jewelry, but sentimental jewelry from that bag into my luggage. I had moved some souvenirs that I had. I mean, again, it didn't make any sense because my carry-on was lightweight and my luggage was overweight. And I knew that, but I still moved everything over to my luggage. And I think in my mind, I was like, I don't want to have a heavy bag to carry, and I'll just take my chances. I don't know. So I did all of that last minute. Sadly, our car, while we were at lunch, got broken into. They took our carry-on bags. Now, we were being highly protected because a couple that was in like an Italian villa that was overlooking this area where we were parked, which was right across from the beach, they saw it happen and yelled down because, like I said, it's a very visible area. They yelled down to these people, these two guys that were breaking into our car as they were going around to open up the back. Like, they got the two carry-ons. They got Caroline's, they got mine. And they went to go around to the back to get the 3 pieces of luggage. And they yelled down to them and stopped it. So forever grateful to this couple. I don't even know their name. Forever grateful. But long story short, we lost some things like credit cards, license, computer, Caroline's pink blanket she said since she was a baby, which is important because Caroline said when she was doing her backpack and getting into it and she put it back in the car, she said, I thought to myself, just take your backpack to lunch with you. And she didn't. I thought when we got to the car, we never talked about this till after. I thought when I got to the car from the beach, everything's going well. You know, maybe we should just end this here and just drive to the airport. It's a nice airport. We'll just check in early, get situated, go to the bar, get something to eat, and just hang out at the airport till we leave. Didn't do it. Had I just taken that hour extra to go to the airport, none of this would have happened. Didn't do it. And the car got broken into. Everybody's fine. We survived. It's fine. Kind of a pain in the ass, but you know, whatever. Everybody's okay. The pink blanket was devastating, but lessons were learned, right? So not to worry. But my point is, intuitive nudges were happening. Some we listened to, like moving my computer over to my luggage, which made no sense, moving some really critical things that I had in my carry-on bag. Like, I had souvenirs that I got blessed at the Vatican for some Catholic friends. So sentimental. I thought I lost all those. And then I got to Greece and I was like, I moved those. I can't believe I moved those. So I ended up having those. But things like that, it just didn't make any sense. Another intuitive nudge that I had was, I never do this. Buy the insurance on the car. I never buy the insurance because your car insurance covers it. So I'm like, it's a waste of money. But this time I did it. Saved us. We got to the car rental place and the guy was like, you know, I'm sorry this happened. And I said, well, do I have to fill out paperwork? How does this work? You know, we have our flight, but I think we have a little bit of time. And he said, oh no, we have this happen 4 times a day. He's like, you got the insurance, you're good, just go. And we were like, oh, okay. So, you know, my intuitive nudge said, buy the insurance. It's the first time I've rented so many cars in my life. First time I've ever done that. I didn't give Caroline back her passport when we were, you know, doing all the stuff, even knowing we're going to the airport. I never gave it back to her. I had been carrying it with me all week in my purse when we were, you know, out and about. And I asked her later, had you had that passport back, where would you have put it? And she said, in her backpack. And I was like, man, were we protected? You know, we were so protected. And that is what I'm talking about when, you know, we think intuition or being plugged in. We're going to hear voices, or we're going to see our spirit guides, or we're going to see, visions, or we're going to hear something come in divinely. But that isn't it. It's those silent little prompts on your heart that say, do this thing, even when it doesn't make sense. Moving my computer from a carry-on bag to my luggage made no sense, but I did it. Did I move my charger? No. So I was totally without a computer the second half of the trip when I needed it. But I also think that was divine intervention, because I actually think I was meant to unplug. And I think that's kind of part 2 of this message is, it was very traumatic when it happened. It was the first time Caroline was ever victimized in any kind of a real sense. It was, obviously very traumatic. It felt very violating. It was scary being, 2 women alone. I'm in charge. I don't have my husband there. I don't have anybody. I don't have another adult there with me to kind of carry that burden. And so that was very frightening. My nervous system immediately got dysregulated and really stayed dysregulated the rest of the trip. I was very paranoid the rest of the trip, kind of looking over my shoulder all the time, because I had 1 credit card, my passport, and that was it. If I lost anything else, and Caroline and I were separating 2 days later, she was going out with her friends, and then I was alone in Greece. And so it was, it was very much like, I could have had that trip get derailed in that moment that we realized that this crime had taken place. Instead, we definitely were reeling the first day. We got to the airport, we got through security, immediately we're replacing chargers, we're replacing, our AirPods got taken, we're replacing, just getting like little headphone things so we can do our flights and all of that, and getting the converter plugs. And so we're rushing through the airport, getting the things, getting other bags so we can carry things on the plane, all of that, and chargers for our phones, doing what we need to do. And then we went to get a drink and just sort of decompress. And I said to Caroline, this is very traumatic, no doubt about it. And there are lessons to be learned. So not right now, but later, once we've calmed down, I think we should just sit and say, what did we learn? What is the gift of this moment? What did this moment teach us? And so the next day we got up and we were both still like, we were going on a catamaran, like a semi-private catamaran thing for 5 hours in Mykonos in Greece. And we're at the port, or at the dock, waiting, to get on the boat. And we're just both like shell-shocked, still sitting there. And we get on the boat and we're up at the front of the catamaran, and it's all just like out of a dream. And we had, there's some Prosecco. They gave us Prosecco. And we're sitting there with our Prosecco, the most beautiful water I've ever seen in my life. Looked like a movie, really, truly. And we kind of turn and we look at each other, and we both are like, okay, this is where we bounce back. This is where we bounce back. We get back on track now. So we started to kind of like get relief, and we're on this boat. We have nothing to like be worried about. We have nothing to be scared of. We're very safe. And later in the afternoon, we're laying out on the boat, and I'm like, okay, what were the lessons? What have we learned? And so many beautiful things came from it. First of all, trauma bonds you. So, even though we were not personally victimized, it's still very violating having something. My journals were in my carry-on bag with all of my business planning, my morning pages from the Artist's Way from over a year of doing those, my like manifestation journal, everything I've been manifesting. Fortunately, it was a new one at the start of this year, but it's everything from this year. all my business ideas, all my trainings I've been doing, all my notes were in there because I brought that stuff to work on when I was on my own in Greece. And it all got taken. But there was a lesson in that. And so we were like, okay, let's break it down, and, it was, one of them was Caroline kept thinking I was paranoid the whole trip. Well, had I not been, her passport would be gone. So, yes, I was probably overly cautious in all fairness, but she was probably under cautious also in all fairness. And we were separating in 2 days, and I felt a lot more confident that Caroline was going to be a lot more careful with her things as a result of this happening. So that was a good lesson learned. Seeing each other handle a situation like that where a crime had been committed, and in real time processing, like, what are the next steps? What do we do? And I think it gave her more appreciation for me as a woman. I don't think children look at their moms and see them as capable human beings, especially as they start to become adults themselves. I think they start to see you as a very fallible person, with kind of some harsh judgments sometimes. And I think it was very helpful for Caroline in real time to see me face the situation, handle it, and move past it. And there was very good lessons learned there. I think there was good bonding that happened between us as a result of it. I think there were a lot of lessons about resiliency. It was her first victimization, like I told you, and I was able to be there to help her walk through it, to let her know, just because something bad happens doesn't mean everything is bad. It doesn't mean everything you're going to move into is bad. Yes, there's a moment where something that felt bad happened, but good comes from that. So where's the good? Let's find the good. And so then we started to look for the good. What did it teach us? What did we learn? For me, I think it definitely was a reset I needed, because had all of my things not get taken, as hard as that was, as difficult as that was, I would have worked the whole time I was in Greece. I would have been on my computer. I was very cloudy. I'm in the middle of having my website designed. I'm rolling out my offerings that are going to go into my sales page that's being developed. And had so much information coming at me before I left, with my hurt back, being at the lake, getting strep throat, all that before I left, and then trying to create this website and get ready for this big trip. I was so murky, and I would have tried to have worked through that, and I think made a lot of decisions I would have regretted later. And instead, I was forced to slow down, and because I was feeling so tense, I really didn't venture out a ton. I did go out, for sure, but I didn't go to Athens the way I thought I would. I didn't go to Santorini. I wasn't as busy. So I was able to kind of just go in and reset. I mean, literally, it was myself and my phone. My books were in my carry-on bag. My computer didn't have a charger. So I did buy a journal in the town. So I did do that. And it was just me. I was able to get clear. It was almost like all of that just went whoosh out of me. And now I'm starting fresh, and I feel much more clear-headed. I feel like it was a reset and a new start. And I feel like it wouldn't have happened had all of my things come with me. So I'm very grateful for that. I am very, very grateful for the appreciation it gives me for my husband, because one of the things that got taken was the car key for my car that was at the JFK airport in New York City in long-term parking, because my husband was flying into Hartford, Connecticut the same night I was flying back into the United States, and then I was picking him up, and off we were going to visit our older daughter in Portland for the weekend. Well, I didn't have a key to my car, and it was in Ohio, and there was no way to get it to me unless he brought it to me. So he, even though he had his flight, we had a hotel, he ended up canceling everything. He had a big board meeting. He got out of it. He never misses his board meetings. He got out of it. He flew into JFK, found the car, didn't even know where it was, found the car in long-term parking. I don't even know how, all before I flew in. And then I flew in, he took the day off work, I flew in and literally walked out of baggage claim, and there he was. And I didn't burst into tears because I was so shocked. But the amount of relief I felt, and I am all about a woman being strong and independent. Like I said, I did this with my older daughter when she was 16, went to Paris, London, Germany, like all of those things. But the relief I felt knowing I have someone I can lean on. Somebody's taking care of things. I don't have to keep doing it by myself. I'm not alone. I have a partner, and one I've taken for granted a lot, and one I didn't realize how much I did rely on until he was there, and all of a sudden I knew I was safe. I was like, okay, I can breathe. I don't have to make all these decisions by myself anymore. I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to be watching over my back because somebody literally has it for me. And I didn't realize how much I took that for granted or how much I valued it until I didn't have it and it was all me. So it gave me a completely new appreciation for my husband I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I was so grateful for that. So a lot of good came out of it. So I think I wanted to share this because I think there's two parts to this message, maybe even three. One, intuition is that nudge that sometimes we listen to and sometimes we don't. And it isn't like a billboard. It isn't flashing and going, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. It's that subtle prompt. And when we follow it, we're in alignment. And when we don't follow it, that's when the tougher situations happen. And even when it doesn't make sense, we should be listening. And I think as we get better at recognizing it in the moment, oh, I'm thinking this thought that doesn't make sense. This is my intuition. This is a nudge. I need to listen. It doesn't make sense, which means I should be following it because this is my intuition talking to me. It didn't make sense to move my computer at all. I thought it didn't make sense to book a car and a driver when I could get my own car and drive and have more flexibility. I should have booked the driver. It didn't make sense to get the car, to get the plan on the car because I had that covered through my insurance. It didn't make sense, but I did it. So I'm not saying it doesn't always not make sense, but I am saying a lot of the times we talk ourselves out and then later we go, I knew it. I should have just listened to myself. That's your intuition. And as we start to listen more, I think we recognize it more, or we'll sometimes, and that's the hard thing with intuition, right? Had I booked the driver, I never would have had any of these moments happen. I never would have. And I wouldn't have had all these lessons, and I wouldn't have had these moments of recognizing intuition because nothing would have gone wrong, presumably. Now, an argument could be made that my intuition was saying, book that car because something worse would have happened had I not. All fair. That is absolutely fair, and that could be the case, and I'll never know. I just know where my intuition did talk to me, and I gaslighted myself out of doing it, and I think following the nudge is very important. We should follow the nudge and recognize the nudge for what it is. And if there's no good reason to kind of gaslight yourself out of it, then don't. I do think we were divinely protected. I think everything that happened, that's, lesson number 2, everything that happened for a reason. And I trust God. I trust source. I trust spirit. I trust the universe. however you want to say it, that everything that happened for a reason, and that reason protected us. And I'm very grateful for that. I also think, 3, I could have looked at that situation and said, it was horrifying, it was terrifying, it was awful, it ruined my whole trip. And while it was terrifying and it was a horrible thing, it didn't ruin my whole trip. In fact, I'm not going to say it made my trip better. It certainly didn't make my trip better, but it made me better. It made me better. And I think it made Caroline better, because it made us appreciate what we have. It made us look for the good. It made us find the lesson. It helped us learn some things we either take for granted or we just needed it. So forever grateful for that. Would I have rather to have gone to that trip and never had that moment happen? I mean, you never want something like that to happen at all. But it did, and I can't change that. So I don't want to waste it. I don't want to waste what that moment had to teach me, what that moment had to give me, and the gratitude for it. That's what I don't want to miss. I didn't want to miss, you know. I have a whole new appreciation for my husband. I have appreciation for my child, for God. You know, we were protected. We weren't there when it happened. You know, that car easily, if they drove by and saw us getting into our stuff, could have stopped right then. We could have been mugged. We could have been there. Can you imagine how terrifying that would have been? We weren't. So grateful that that couple was there and stopped the big robbery from happening. So grateful. So grateful they haven't gotten into Caroline's computer. You know, there hasn't been, they did try to use my credit cards, but I'm grateful the credit card company caught it right away. Before I had a chance to call, they caught it right away. So grateful for that. Nothing was opened on our credit reports before I was able to freeze them. You know, very, very thankful for that. So that's just what I wanted to share today. It's not really about weight loss. It's not about authenticity, but it is about a real-time moment of learning for me that I want to help share with you. So when you're hearing those nudges, or when you are the victim of a crime, hopefully not a serious one, you can look for the good, and you can listen to the nudge, and you can just appreciate the protection, because I do believe something worse could have happened to us one way or the other that this protected us from. And even if that is just a bad business decision, you know, because I didn't have that stuff to do it. I don't know. I'll never know. And I'm grateful for that too. So I just thought I would share, and I am back. I'll start putting content out again. It's been a whirlwind of my back being hurt, traveling, strep throat. I've had a lot going on the last month or so. So, but I'm back. Hopefully you're staying with me, and I have exciting things coming. My website's being developed. I'm getting ready to roll out a 3-month program, my online community, some lunar moments, new moon, full moon that I'm going to be offering online. So I have some really cool things coming. So be on the lookout. Hopefully in the next couple weeks I have that live. And in the meantime, I'm just going to keep doing this, and I hope you do too. Thanks.